DISOVERED, how a heartwarming CEO transformed an unexpected attack into a 5B closure of injustice. The sun cast its golden light over suburban Chicago as Sarah Mitchell, a beloved local CEO, made her morning rounds at the farmers market. She greeted vendors with warmth and laughter, embodying her family's values of hard work and integrity. Everyone knew Sarah as the heart of the town, a devoted daughter always supporting her parents and a pillar in her close-knit community, reinforcing the fabric of small-town America. With every organic food product her company offered, she was sowing seeds of connection and nurturing the essence of family, but behind Sarah's radiant smile lay relentless pressure, especially from her younger brother Tom. A war veteran struggling with the shadows of his past, Tom felt eclipsed by Sarah's dazzling success. Their bond strained under the weight of comparison. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" echoed in Tom's mind every time he heard that familiar praise from their parents. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't reconcile his struggles with her bright ascent. Then, without warning, disaster struck. A vindictive former employee unleashed a firestorm of lies, painting Sarah as a fraud. The whispers swirled like an unstoppable current, engulfing everything she'd worked for. Friends turned into strangers, and the warmth of community began to feel like chains. The very legacy her parents had instilled in her was under siege, leaving her breathless and filled with doubt. Could everything she stood for crumble like a house of cards? In a moment of fierce determination, she decided to turn the tide. Sarah organized a community meeting at the town hall, a gathering of supporters where she would share her truth and reaffirm her dedication to her neighbors. As she prepared in her modest living room, filled with family memorabilia, fear crept in. Would they stand with her, or had the venomous gossip poisoned their hearts? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. On the day of the meeting, the hall was adorned with banners of local pride. Her heart raced as familiar faces filled the seats. But then, a fresh wave of rumors crashed in. A close friend, once a confidant, twisted words to amplify the doubts surrounding her. Desperate whispers echoed in the crowd, and Sarah felt the chasm between her and her brother widen even more. Then, as she faced the audience, something shifted. Anger burned in her chest, igniting courage. This wasn't just about her, it was about everyone feeling run over by life, individuals like Tom who bore their own battles. Discovering the hidden motivations behind the smear campaign, Sarah confronted the instigator, and in a startling revelation, she unearthed systemic injustices that affected more than just her. At that moment, she realized that she was no longer just defending her name, she was igniting a movement. Would she gather her community and forge ahead, turning heartbreak into a force for good? With her family's legacy at stake and her relationship with Tom hanging in the balance, Sarah stood at a crossroads. This clash could either bring them together or drive them further apart. What would the next chapter of her journey hold? As Sarah stood there, the murmurs in the audience amplified. Faces that had once beamed with pride now wore masks of uncertainty. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every eye on her, searching for answers, seeking clarity where shadows had once existed. With trembling hands, she clutched the podium, channeling her thoughts into a fiery resolve. "I know I've disappointed some of you," she began, her voice steadying. "But I am not a fraud. I am your neighbor, your friend, and I want to fight for us all." Each word pushed the anxiety deeper into her gut, but determination carved a path through the fear. In the back of the hall, Tom's heart raced, his fist clenched tightly. Did he want to believe his sister? The noise of gossip fought against his desire to trust her again. Sarah continued, her words weaving through the hall, pulling fragments of hope from those around her. She spoke not only of her battle but of the struggles many faced in silence, canceling a community look away when real issues caused wounds. As a town, we can rise against the tide of injustice, she declared, her voice rising with passion. This is bigger than one person's reputation. It's about everyone who has been unfairly treated, everyone who feels they have no voice. Her eyes flashed with a conviction that lit a spark in the crowd. One by one, heads began to nod, a sense of solidarity was bubbling to the surface. Suddenly, Margie, a longtime friend, stood up with tears glistening in her eyes. "We believe you, Sarah," she called out, her voice cutting through the tension. More voices joined in, breaking the silence. A wave of affirmations rolled through the space like thunder. Tom struggled against the torrent of emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. Pride battled with confusion. How could he stand here, knowing she was a beacon of light when he felt lost in shadows? Yet his heart ached. He wanted to be part of this moment, to believe in his sister's vision. But just as the atmosphere shifted towards unity, one shadow remained, the underlying fear that something more sinister was at play. Sarah, sensing the hesitations, decided to unveil her findings about the smear campaign. "I've discovered something that will shock you," she said, her voice almost a whisper as she leaned in. People leaned closer, curiosity piqued. "There's a deeper foundation behind these lies," she continued, courage resurfacing. "These attacks weren't random. They were orchestrated to control us, to bury our community under a facade of doubt." Gasps erupted from the crowd. Conversations buzzed, disbelief washed over the hall. This truth felt like a punch to the gut, awakening a hunger for justice. Sarah's words painted a clear picture of a system that sought to divide in the name of profit. She had no intention of letting this stand. As she spoke of accountability and the strength of community, her gaze flickered to Tom, whose uncertain expression began to soften. Was he beginning to understand, to connect with her fight? As the echoes of her voice washed over the room, she sensed a shift, a window of reconciliation opening. Just before Sarah concluded, she locked eyes with her brother. "Tom, I need you by my side. Together we can reclaim our community." The room held its breath. Would he reach back, or was she at the brink of losing him forever? The spotlight on her heart intertwined with the reality that the fight had only begun. Each beat was a rallying cry, urging them to unite against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. What would it take for Tom to step into the light beside her? The next chapter awaited a decision. The tension in the room was palpable, a thick wave of anticipation hanging in the air. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she searched Tom's eyes, hoping for any sign of support. His expression flickered between doubt and a longing to believe, like a candle wavering in the draft. It was a battle she knew all too well, the pull of loyalty against the weight of mistrust. "Tom," she whispered, the urgency in her voice cutting through the noise. She could see the struggle within him, the flicker of uncertainty giving way to something deeper. Perhaps it was a recognition of the love that had always woven their lives together. As the crowd murmured, the moment stretched. Sarah took a step closer to the edge of the podium, her heart racing. "This isn't just about me or this situation. It's about us and who we choose to be. When we stand silent, we let fear win," she urged, desperately wanting to drain the shadows from her brother's eyes. Tom's breath hitched. He could feel everyone's gaze, but more importantly, he could feel Sarah's unyielding faith in them both. "What if you're wrong?" He finally spoke, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. "What if the truth is different?" The crowd fell silent again, hanging on his every word. Sarah's heart sank momentarily, but as she opened her mouth to respond, she saw it the resolve building in Tom's eyes as he continued. "But what if you're right? What if we can really do something about this?" Relief washed over Sarah, but his hesitation still lingered like a storm cloud. "Together we can take them on. I'm just scared." His voice cracked, vulnerability shining through. It resonated with the people around them, reminding them of their own fears, the struggles of their daily lives. Sarah stepped off the stage and walked toward him. The space between them felt both vast and intimate. She reached out, gently placing her hand on his arm. "I'm scared too, Tom. But we can't give in to that fear. We owe it to ourselves, to our family and our community to fight back. We're stronger together." The energy shifted as eyes turned from Tom to Sarah, absorbing the honesty of their exchange. It was more than just a brother and sister, they were symbols of determination and hope in a community that had been fractured. Margie's voice cut through the stillness. "What do we need to do, Sarah? We're with you." The crowd erupted in murmurs of agreement. Tom looked around. They were rallying, gathering courage in a way he had never seen before, driven by Sarah's unyielding spirit. The light of her conviction spread, and Tom felt a shift within himself. He was tired of feeling lost, tired of standing in the shadows. "I'll do it," he finally said, the words bursting from him. "I'll stand with you, Sarah." A roar of approval filled the hall. Sarah's heart swelled as she took Tom's hand, bridging the gap that had held them apart for so long. Together they were stronger, a duo unified by their past and now their shared purpose. As they turned back to the crowd, Sarah's voice rang out over the cheers. "Let us uncover the truth together. We'll document everything, get our stories heard, and make the powers that be accountable." The crowd erupted with renewed energy, invigorated by the promise of action. As ideas flowed and plans began to form, Sarah could feel a new sense of hope pulsate through the room. But even amidst their rallying strength, doubt lingered in the corners of her mind. This battle was just starting, and what lay ahead could get even darker. The very forces conspiring against them wouldn't back down easily. With adrenaline coursing through her, Sarah knew they were taking a stand, but a chilling thought crept in: what if the deeper foundations of those lies were more tangled and dangerous than she ever anticipated? Could they truly shake the ground beneath those who sought to control them, or would their newfound hope crumble before it even fully took flight? The next step was critical, and it loomed ahead like a steep hill to climb. The air felt electric, humming with a newfound purpose. Sarah and Tom stood united, hand in hand, their hearts pounding with the rhythm of determination echoing through the hall. The crowd buzzed with excitement and fear, each person wrestling with thoughts of what was to come. They could feel the expectancy, the hope blooming within walls that had long felt suffocated, and it invigorated them. "We're not just standing up for ourselves," Sarah spoke again, her voice rising above the din. "We're standing for everyone out there who has felt powerless. For those who thought they had to suffer in silence. We are the voice they need. We won't let them silence us." Tom shouted, his confidence growing. The crowd erupted into cheers, their hearts sinking, creating a heartbeat of defiance. As the chants of support roared around them, an idea began swirling in Sarah's mind. "Let us organize teams. We need to reach out to every corner of our community, the schools, the churches, the local businesses. Everyone must join this fight." Tom's enthusiasm matched hers. "We can gather stories, experiences, create a web of truth that can't be dismissed." The excitement was palpable, the way sunlight breaks through dark clouds, illuminating everything in its path. But just as hope surged, so did the shadow of uncertainty. Sarah's stomach clenched. She had seen how powerful the forces against them could be. Would it be enough? Ho! 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 The lead organizer's booming voice cut through the chatter. A tall figure emerged from the side, clapping his hands to gain attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a long road ahead. But, we've never been alone. We have experience and resources right here, and we can start bringing these stories to light." The crowd began to disperse, everyone buzzing about plans, ideas, and strategies. Sarah felt Tom squeeze her hand, grounding her. "We need to begin researching. We need every angle, every detail. We can't just go in blind." "Yeah," she replied, swallowing hard. "We also need to prepare ourselves emotionally. The things we'll uncover. They could hurt, they could shake us. Their heads were swirling with worry, love, and resilience as they moved toward a table laden with papers, pens, and unwavering hope. Margie joined them, her eyes glinting with enthusiasm. I'll gather testimonies from the neighborhood. I know a lot of people feel the same way. Sarah nodded with gratitude. Thank you, Margie. We need everyone's voices. As they divided the tasks, the room thrummed with urgency. Not only were they seeking truth, but they were also building an alliance. It was thrilling but terrifying, like standing at the top of a steep hill, ready to ride down. Yet, as the walls of injustice began to feel touchable, Sarah's mind raced with questions. What if exposing the truth only made them targets? What if they were shining a light into a darkness that didn't just want to stay hidden but would strike back? That feeling curled in her mind, a shadow she couldn't shake, but she pushed it away forcefully. She had Tom and the community behind her. They would face whatever came together. As they each went their separate ways for the night, Sarah could still feel the electric charge in the air. The journey ahead felt both like a beacon of hope and a looming storm. Just as she was about to step out, she turned to Tom. We'll need courage more than we've ever had. Tom stopped and looked deep into her eyes. And if we find something deeper, something that reveals the system's real intentions? That reality hovered over her like a dark cloud. Then we expose it, she replied, breathless. With that, they stepped out into the night, the weight of their mission hanging heavy but promising. And as they walked into the uncertainty, the flicker of a challenge glowed brighter. They were not just uncovering a truth, they were aiming to unleash a reckoning. But what if the lies they unraveled were just the beginning of something far more insidious than they could ever imagine? The following days passed in a whirlwind of action. Sarah and Tom could hardly catch their breath. Their small team quickly grew as people from all walks of life joined their cause. With each meeting, their mission solidified further, transforming fleeting ideas into actionable plans. They established meeting points, a structured timeline, and set tangible goals for outreach. One afternoon, Sarah found herself seated at a long table in the community center, surrounded by a diverse group of volunteers. Some were seasoned activists, while others had never participated in such initiatives before. Laughter and chatter filled the space, but the undercurrent of seriousness weighed on them all. It was both heartening and heavy. Okay, everyone. Sarah called, her voice steadying the room. Let us start sharing our ideas. What stories have you gathered so far? Margie kicked things off, her eyes sparkling with determination. I spoke to Mrs. Jenkins down the street. She's been at this community for over 30 years. She has a trove of experiences with the administration that could really make waves. Nods bounced around the table, excitement electrifying the air. As others shared their findings, Sarah's heart soared. It felt powerful, like they were weaving together a quilt of narratives that had been overlooked for too long. Each testimony brought a new layer to their cause, each story a thread binding their mission tighter, yet, something nagged at the back of her mind. As their web of truth expanded, so did the potential for backlash. What would happen if those in power felt threatened? Fear crept in, chilling her excitement. She shared her worries with Tom later, as they strolled through the park after a long planning session. What if we uncover something that puts us in danger? I'm scared, Tom. What if we're in over our heads? Tom paused, looking at her with a warmth that melted her anxiety a little. Being afraid doesn't mean we should stop. It just means we need to be smart about how we proceed. The truth is our greatest weapon, but we need to be careful. Sarah let the words settle, feeling their weight. He was right. Logic fought against the panic, pushing her fears into the corners of her mind. They had already come so far. You know, she said hesitantly, I worry more about what we're going to find than what it might cost us. Then let us make it worth it, Tom replied, his tone firm. We're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for all those who can't. We owe it to them. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows as the brilliant colors of dusk came alive. Sarah felt a sense of clarity, as if the sunset illuminated her path. The next few weeks flew by as they immersed themselves further into this fight. Meetings turned into brainstorming sessions, and quiet lunches morphed into strategic debates. They pooled resources, unearthing facts and digging deep into the history of their community's struggles. But just as they began to find a rhythm, an ominous message arrived in the form of an anonymous letter slipped under the community center door. You think you're uncovering truth? Just know there are consequences for meddling in affairs that don't concern you. Leave well enough alone. The collective gasp that rose from the group was chilling. Tom's eyes darted around, searching for answers in the murky uncertainty. This isn't just a warning anymore. It's real. They're watching. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. The air felt stifled, heavy with dread, as the threat lingered in the space between them. What began as a mission of hope now danced dangerously close to darkness, and they needed a plan. Next chapter, Sarah said, her mind racing, we discuss how to safeguard our findings. We can't let fear overshadow the truth we set out to expose. What she didn't expect was how this message would change everything they thought they knew about their fight. The tension hung thick in the air, a palpable weight that seemed to press down on everyone. As the group huddled closer together, their camaraderie forged in the crucible of shared purpose, Sarah felt both a surge of determination and the gnawing bite of fear. The letter's warning echoed in her mind, a constant reminder that they were stepping into treacherous territory. All right, Sarah began, her voice shaking but resolute. We need to create some ground rules. How do we approach this without endangering ourselves or our families? Margie's voice rose, steady and measured. We can document everything carefully, but we might want to consider using pseudonyms for anyone who shares sensitive information. It could protect them. Nods of agreement rippled through the group, and Tom added, we should also consider moving our meetings. The community center isn't exactly discreet. The collective brainstorming turned frenzied as ideas flooded in. The group suggested everything from encrypted communication apps to establishing a secure location outside the neighborhood. Each suggestion was a step toward fortifying their resolve, yet with each new idea, Sarah could feel the flicker of doubt creeping back in. Was it enough? As the sun set outside, casting flickering shadows, Sarah took a moment to collect her racing thoughts. We need to keep moving forward, she declared, determination filling her voice. We started this for a reason. The stories we uncover are powerful. But later that evening, as she and Tom walked home, a knot formed in her stomach. What if something happens to us? It feels like we're ripping the curtain off something people want to keep hidden, she confessed, her vulnerability spilling over. Tom stopped, turning to face her. The streetlights illuminated his worried expression. We can't think like that. We need to trust ourselves and the people we're working with. We're building something meaningful. They can't silence us just because they're afraid. As they rounded a corner, Sarah caught sight of a figure lingering in the shadows, a tall man in a dark coat. Her heart raced as they passed, a spark of panic igniting within her. Did you see that? She whispered, her voice trembling. Tom paused, glancing back at the figure, now just a shadow against the dim glow of the street lamps. I did. Let us just keep going. But the unease lingered, a chill that chased away any sense of comfort from their earlier discussions. When they reached her front porch, Sarah felt the weight of uncertainty heavier than the night air. Was it just paranoia, or was someone really watching them? In the following days, their meetings shifted. They became more cautious, the laughter replaced with quick glances and hushed conversations. A whiteboard covered in colorful sticky notes was still the centerpiece, but even the ideas felt muted now, constrained by their fear. Then, just as Sarah was beginning to feel suffocated by the shadows wrapping around their mission, another letter arrived, but this time it was different. It rattled her to the core. You've already stirred the nest. Consider this a warning. You might not get a second chance. Panic surged. Sarah's heartbeat thundered in her ears, thoughts spiraling out of control. Were they in way over their heads? Could they afford to push forward? With eyes wide and a heart hammering, Sarah gathered the team once more. We can't turn back now. But we need to discuss the real consequences of continuing on this path. As whispers filled the room, her heart sank. What new uncertainties lay ahead? Would they find the resolve to press on? And then, just when they thought it couldn't get more intense, a mysterious source reached out, offering crucial information, something that could either fortify their case or shatter their entire cause. Would it lead to their salvation or their demise? The room vibrated with an electric mix of fear and determination as Sarah glanced around the circle of familiar faces that had become a second family. Each person seemed to carry their own tension, their unease palpable after the latest letter. It felt as if the walls were closing in, a reminder that they were no longer just sharing ideas but entering a battlefield. Let's hear what this source has to say, she urged, forcing her voice to steady. Tom leaned forward, his eyes filled with an urgency that mirrored her own. If we're going to do this, we need to gather every detail. It's all about context. As they settled in, a grim light flickered from the single desk lamp. It offered a small pocket of warmth against the anxiety that hung in the room. Sarah could hardly concentrate. She felt the weight of responsibility, each decision shifting the fabric of their mission. A vibration broke the silence. A text pinged on her phone. She hesitated only a moment before checking it, heart in her throat. It was from the mysterious source. Her breath caught. Meet me at the old diner tomorrow at 3 p.m. Come alone. What is it? Tom asked, concerned as he noticed the stunned look on her face. Just a message. The words felt heavy in her mouth, cloaked in doubt. How could she explain the jam of worry swelling inside her? They want to meet. Just me. The group erupted in chatter, the sound swirling around Sarah like a whirlpool. You can't go alone. That's too risky, Margie insisted, her voice cutting through the hysteria. I know, Sarah murmured, grappling with the conflicting parts of herself. A part of her longed for that encounter, the promise of new revelations. But another, deeper part screamed in caution. But what if this is the breakthrough we've been waiting for? Several eyes gleamed with an unspoken understanding. None of them wanted her to go, but they knew the weight of this moment could change everything. It's your call, Sarah, Tom said quietly. His gaze locked onto hers. But always stay aware. This could either be our ticket to breakthrough or it could draw us deeper into danger. She nodded, swallowing the growing lump in her throat. Time ticked by faster than usual as they debated the risk versus reward. Every minute felt like a tug of war between bravery and caution. As they began discussing potential contingencies, phone trackers, sharing locations, the atmosphere gradually lightened. Relying on one another sparked a sense of solidarity, the bonds of their friendship shifting tension into hope. Later, as she lay in bed, Sarah replayed the day's conversation in her mind. Through the cacophony of thoughts, one question settled bitterly in her stomach. Was she willing to risk it all, not just for herself but for the group and their cause? Morning came, and with it, the fear loomed larger. She arrived early at the diner, the smell of grease and coffee infusing her senses, yet her appetite waned. The place seemed unchanged by time, thick with echoes of past conversations. Every creak of the floorboards appeared like a whisper of warning beneath her feet, and then she saw him, a shadowy figure hunched in a booth, undeniably out of place. Her mind raced as she recognized the man from her previous passerby interaction. Her heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through her veins. It was now or never. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open. As she crossed the threshold, a sinking feeling settled around her. What truth lay ahead? Was she ready to confront the danger she had unwittingly unleashed? As she approached the booth, she locked eyes with him. There was a flicker of recognition. He was familiar, but different. Sarah, he began, his voice gravelly. You have no idea what you're about to uncover. Her pulse quickened, anticipation mingled with dread. What revelation awaited her? And at what cost? His eyes were dark, shadowed by both the dim light of the diner and the weight of unspoken truths. The atmosphere crackled and tingled, like the tension just before a storm. Sarah's heart raced, but she held her ground. What is it? What do you know? She demanded, a firm tremor in her voice. She wanted answers, but dread pulled at her insides. He leaned in closer, the smell of cigarettes mixed with something sour, a reminder of the long path he had walked. This isn't just about you or even your friends. It's bigger than that. There's corruption at play, deep-rooted corruption. His voice dropped, conspiratorial. I can help. But you need to trust me. Trust? That was a tall order. Sarah felt the weight of her team behind her. They built this endeavor together. How could she risk it on a stranger? Yet the urgency in his voice was magnetic, pulling her thoughts away from the doubts swirling in her head. They don't want you to find out. It's better for them if you stay in the dark. You're standing on the edge of a precipice, Sarah, he continued, now glancing over his shoulder. But once you step off, there's no way back. She narrowed her eyes. What do you mean, they? His lip curled slightly, a stifled laugh or maybe a wince. The powers that be. This is a game to them, and we're just pieces on their board. They'll do anything to keep their secrets safe. Sarah's stomach turned. The thought of unseen forces plotting against her and her friends felt surreal. The stakes couldn't be higher. And what do I get out of this? He paused, studying her. Everything and nothing. If you follow me, you might expose the truth. But the cost, you need to be prepared to lose everything you hold dear. She felt her heart stutter. The crew had become her family, she couldn't imagine life without them. Flickers of doubt clouded her thoughts, yet something deep inside ignited. What was the point of backing down now? How do I know you're not playing me? Trust is built on risk, Sarah. He took a deep breath. You'll need to decide who you're willing to trust. But first, allow me to show you the real game. Just then, the bell above the diner door chimed. Sarah's heart leaped. Had they been followed? The man glanced over, tension rippling across his face. Time to go now. Panic surged through her. What do you mean go? We can't just trust me. He snapped. You need to get out before they find you here. Desperation pressed at her chest. Should she? Heart racing, Sarah weighed her options. Her friends, her mission, her life, every instinct told her to run. But which path would lead her closer to the truth? The door swung open, and a fresh wave of customers flooded in, suddenly turning the diner into a bustling scene. With a gust of courage, she pulled back, nodding slightly. Fine. Show me. He stood, urgency etched into his features, leading her toward the exit. Outside, the sunlight hit her face, shocking in its brightness. She paused, hesitating, the weight of choice hanging heavy around her shoulders. As they stepped into the unknown, a chilling realization washed over her. This was only the beginning. Whatever lay ahead could shatter her world or save it. Wait, she said, turning her gaze back to the diner. What if they're watching? They always are, he replied, voice low and gravelly. That's why we have to move fast. Follow me if you're ready to uncover the truth, if you're ready to break the chains that bind you. It started there, in that small diner, where choices fragmented their lives. Little did she know, this moment would tip the scales of her destiny, pushing her further down a rabbit hole of secrets and shadows she couldn't fathom. But as she followed him into the bright and blinding uncertainty, she couldn't help but wonder, were they destined to become the heroes in their story or the pawns in someone else's game? The streets outside the diner were buzzing with life, a stark contrast to the swirling chaos inside. Sarah squinted against the sunlight, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. She glanced at the man next to her, his face set, an unsettling mix of urgency and assurance. "Where are we going?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "To a place where you can see it all," he replied, leading her down a narrow side street. "The shadows are safer for now." They hurried through alleyways, the sound of their footsteps echoing against brick walls. Sarah's mind raced. Moments before, she had been sipping coffee with her friends, brainstorming for their project. Now, she was entangled in a web of secrets, chased by an unseen enemy. "Are you sure we want to get caught?" The words escaped her before she could tame them. He turned sharply, fiery eyes meeting hers. "Caught? It's likely. But it's the only way to discover the truth. If we don't act, they'll bury it. And you, along with it." She swallowed hard, contemplating the weight of his words. Could she really trust him? But the desperate pull of uncovering corruption was stronger than her fear. She nodded, determination flooding her veins. As they rounded a corner, Sarah's breath hitched. A faded warehouse stood before them, its windows grimy and barred like a forgotten relic. The man gestured for her to follow him inside. The interior was dark, shadows pooling in every corner. He flicked on a light, illuminating a cluttered space filled with old boxes, metal shelves, and cracked concrete. It smelled like dust and lost memories. "Here," he said, picking through the boxes until he unearthed a battered tablet. He wiped the screen, revealing a collection of documents, images, and unsettling news articles. "This is just the tip of the iceberg." Sarah stepped closer, her heart pounding as she read the headlines. Whispers of political ties, suspicious disappearances, and the name of a corporation she knew all too well. The pieces began to align, and a wave of nausea hit her. "They're involved," she whispered, pain stabbing through her chest. "My company, they can't be. How deep does this go?" He looked at her, a mix of sympathy and resolve flickering in his eyes. "Far deeper than you think. But we can expose them. Together." Fuel ignited inside her, battling the flicker of dread. "What do we need to do next?" "Gather what we can. Evidence, names, dates, everything. Then we can go to the authorities or the press. But we must be careful, they're always watching." A fire kindled in her spirit. She wasn't just fighting for her friends anymore, she was fighting for justice. For others who had become victims of this unseen empire, the gravity of her decision began to settle in her bones. She could lose everything: her job, her relationships, her sense of security. But the thought of remaining silent felt worse. "Let us start now," she said, her voice steady, filled with newfound purpose. "We'll fight this together." They began to sift through the materials, diving into the darkness. Hours slipped by like shadows, both enchanted and terrified by the burgeoning reality they were unraveling. But suddenly, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed from outside. Sarah froze. "Someone's coming," she whispered, heart racing. "Hide," he ordered, his expression tightening. They ducked behind a row of shelves, hearts pounding in unison. The footsteps grew louder, the tension thick in the air as they waited in silence. "Sarah, if we get caught," he began, but she couldn't focus on that. She needed to think. As the footsteps neared, a chilling question echoed in her mind: would their quest for the truth lead to liberation, or would it seal their fate? And as they huddled in the darkness, a single thought loomed ominously: power had eyes everywhere. Would they outsmart it, or would they become the next victims in this perilous game? The dim light flickered, casting shadows that danced across the warehouse walls. Heart pounding, Sarah could feel the pressure of the moment wrapping around her like a heavy blanket. She and the man who had brought her here, the stranger turned potential ally, held their breath as footsteps echoed nearer. Then silence. The footsteps paused, and a pair of harsh voices filled the air, muttering just outside the door. Sarah's mind raced. They would have to get out. Now. Her fingers clenched tightly around the edge of the shelf, every instinct screaming at her to run. "Stay quiet," the man hissed, his breath warm against her ear. "We can't afford to be discovered." The voices shifted, growing fainter, the danger receding as they moved down the hall. When she was sure they were gone, Sarah exhaled shakily, a breath she felt she had held for hours. "Let us keep going," the man urged, pulling her back to focus. They dug deep into the documents, poring over names and figures, piecing together the scandal that would shake their community. Day turned into night, but the flicker of hope illuminated the room stronger than any lamp. With each revelation, Sarah could feel the fire of determination igniting in her heart. But shadows still lingered. Every rustle outside made her pulse race. Fear coiled in her gut. What if they were caught? What if the very forces they sought to expose turned against them? Still, there was no turning back. Too many people depended on them now. After hours of relentless searching, Sarah stumbled upon a file named Project Oversee. Her fingers shook as she opened it. "Look," she whispered, showing him a map, intricate with connections of corporate greed that reached beyond their small town. It was a network swollen with corruption that extended to the highest levels of government. "This isn't just about us, it's about everyone." "That's right," he said, awestruck intensity in his eyes. "They can't be allowed to control us. We need to gather evidence and present it to the right people." Together, they stepped into peril, navigating bitter truths and dark alleys while strategizing their next moves. Days passed, and the sense of urgency only grew. They formed bonds with local journalists, activists, and even those who previously whispered doubts behind Sarah's back. They transformed whispers of betrayal into shouts of defiance. Amid the storm of activism, a dawning brilliance composed their fight, a return to the heart of the community that had always supported her. Her previous failures dissolved into a torrent of resolve. Then, the moment they'd prepared for arrived. With a gathering of their allies, they called for a community meeting. Just like the one Sarah had organized before, but now with the undeniable strength of truth backing them. As the crowd filled the hall with wary but hopeful faces, Sarah felt the heat rise in her chest. This was their moment. Faces of her friends, family, and even strangers lit with a fire of expectation. She stepped forward, gripping the podium tightly, feeling invincible under the weight of her mission. "Tonight, we unveil the truth," she declared, her voice ringing with confidence. "We stand together, united against injustice. Together, we will rally our strength and rise against the corruption that seeks to silence us." The crowd erupted into cheers, the echoes of their voices fusing into a singular heartbeat, vibrating with a power that shook the very foundation of the hall. With Tom by her side, she could feel the weight of their shared battles dissipating, an unbreakable bond forged in the furnace of challenges they had both faced. As they prepared to expose the document with harrowing truths, someone shouted from the back, "What if they try to silence us? Silence is what they depend on. But not us." Sarah shouted, a newfound conviction ringing out. "We refuse to be afraid." The energy surged as they united their stories, driving an unstoppable force against the shadows. Hands reached out, voices rose in unity, and behind her, she could feel Tom's presence grounding her, a brother rekindled, now a fierce defender. Finally, after a long and grueling presentation of their findings, a catalytic moment hung in the air. They called widely for local news coverage, urging the world to see the web of deception. They held their breath, hearts pounding, and victory shimmering across their vision like sunlight breaking through clouds. The news spread like wildfire, their community buoyed by their stand, and the ripple effects cascading beyond their town's borders. Sarah had transformed from a solitary figure in a spotlight of doubt into the heart of a movement that resonated powerfully with not just her family, but with countless other survivors of injustice, echoing tales of reclamation, rising against vultures that sought to gain from their silence. In the aftermath, as Sarah and Tom walked home hand in hand, a radiant glow warmed their hearts, and she knew this journey had only just begun. With renewed purpose and a deep sense of connection, she understood now, every struggle could cultivate deeper roots of love, transforming shadows into light. "Together we can change this town," Tom said softly, gazing at her. "Yes," Sarah replied, her smile wide, joy spilling through her. "And it starts with us believing in each other, and the community we protect." As they stepped into their lives, hand in hand, Sarah found that hope thrives in collective action, and together they could overshadow even the deepest darkness. Now, the future loomed bright, a canvas in waiting, but don't lose sight of what brought you here. This is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories, leave a like now to feed the algorithm, comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, show your support, because true fans know teamwork makes the dream work. Don't wait not even one more second to share.